the fact it remains untouched, is that there's just so much money involved? Is that the reason?
Well, I think everyone looks at money and says money, 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 and of course, money has a huge impact on it. I mean, the hypothesis never started because of money. Most people believe in it. It's got nothing to do with money. Money does sustain it because, yes, there are new LDL lowering agents around, which are vastly more expensive than statins and are making billions of dollars in profit. So there is a vested interest in keeping it going. Yes, obviously. But I think, I look at other ideas that have been sustained throughout history of medical thinking that have had nothing to do with money. I think that you get this, it was Richard Dawkins who talked about memes. They're sort of infectious ideas that just get into people's brains. I think I like to quote the film Inception sometimes, which one of the quotes from it, which is very telling, is the most resilient parasite is an idea, and it's a very sort of seductive idea. Cholesterol and or fat, and most people think they're the same thing, but of course they're just completely different things. They look, or fat looks blubbery and horrible, and you can sort of imagine it blubbery, horrible stuff, and you eat it, it sort of ends up blubbery and horrible in your arteries. And it's very simplistic. Or it's H.L. Mencken, another guy I quote from time to time, said, for every complex problem, there's a solution that's simple, easy to understand, and wrong. And the LDL cholesterol hypothesis, because you keep changing your mind, it started out as if you eat too much cholesterol, the cholesterol level in your blood rises and it's deposited in your arteries. All right, that was the original thinking. Well, of course, first of all, Ancel Keys, who started it all really, or turbo boosted the whole hypothesis in the 1950s, fed adult males lots of cholesterol, and it made no difference to their cholesterol level whatsoever. So he abandoned that idea and said, oh, it's not cholesterol, it's saturated fat. On the basis of what? There is no sort of pathway from one to the other. Doesn't make any sense. But it kind of allowed it to be fudged. So the first enormous fudge happened very early on, which was, well, actually, cholesterol doesn't raise your cholesterol. And then, of course, the next thing is you don't have any cholesterol in your bloodstream anyway. So what are you talking about? And then we say, oh, well, it just gets into your arteries. You go, right. So going back to Elspeth Smith and my medical student days, it was like, well, it can't pass the endothelium. Now, there will be people who disagree with this idea, but and then you end up, as with science, it's complicated. You find that there is endothelium in different places of your body, and it's quite different, and da-da-da-da-da. But within your arteries, where you get heart disease, it's not even heart disease, is it? The terminology is stupid. It's not heart. It's not a disease of your heart. It's a disease of the arteries. And of course, arteries supply your heart, and arteries supply your brain, and arteries supply blood to all over your body. The disease is not heart disease. The disease is artery disease. They call it coronary artery disease, but of course it affects arteries all around the body. So it's not coronary artery disease. It's not coronary heart disease. It's sort of cardiovascular disease, but it's really vascular disease. So, I mean, it's very difficult to have a debate here almost. You want to start by saying, actually, this is the disease and we should call it this. These are lipoproteins. It's not cholesterol. We should call it this. So, but then you end up, everyone's fallen asleep before you actually have the argument. So it's like, no, it's really boring. I'm sorry, it is a bit boring. Science is a bit boring. It's not boring to me because I love it, but I understand it. You want a simple solution. How do I lower my cholesterol level? Well, you don't have a cholesterol level, so I can't answer that question. If you want to discuss how you can lower your LDL level, I'm going to say to you, take a statin. Bye. You want that to do any good? Well, good luck on that. So it's frustrating in that, unless people are willing to spend some time and understanding what you're talking. The endothelium. What's an endothelium? Well, actually, here's another 10 minutes describing what the endothelium is, or at least an hour, or perhaps several hours.
So I read in your book about how the reason that LDL can't pass the endothelium. Are you able to explain that?
Right. In the simplest terms, just think of the endothelium that that is around all your arteries, which is where heart disease happens. Right? It doesn't happen in veins, even though they all too have a endothelium, and they too have LDL flowing through them at exactly the same concentration as arteries. Is that endothelium is a bit, they are, think of them as wall tiles, right? Think of them as wall tiles which have grout in between them, and the grout is as strong as the wall tile. There is no, this grout hasn't broken down, all right? Or think of the endothelium as being like terraced houses, and someone says, oh, we're just going to slip between the terraced house, and you go, you can't slip between the terraced house because they're stuck together with bricks. So the endothelium are made of flattened cells, endothelial cells, which are incredibly tightly bound together. They're called tight junctions. Proteins link between them really, really tightly, so nothing can get past. Right? I mean, the idea of things slipping through. So, and also, all endothelium is lined by a forest, a lawn of proteins and glucose and proteins, which again don't let anything through. As I say to people, ions, an ion being a charged atom, sodium, potassium, calcium, whatever, there's millions, chlorine. An ion is quite often one atom or two atoms stuck together. Atoms can't pass into cells, and an atom would be the size, say, of a human being next to a large football stadium or something. All right, you can't get one of them into a cell because they don't let it in. Because if a cell allowed atoms to pass freely from the bloodstream into them, then a life would cease like that.